Welcome to the Yield Tactics Podcast, your go-to source for all topics related to yield and revenue management, pricing strategies, and industry insights. We're diving deep into the dynamic world of revenue management and pricing across various sectors, with a particular focus on travel, leisure, transportation industries, and beyond. From airlines optimizing seat inventory to hotels adjusting room rates based on demand, and even to theme parks maximizing ticket sales, yield management plays a crucial role in ensuring businesses extract the maximum value from their resources. Joining us are Yield Tactics senior consultants and partners, industry experts, thought leaders, and pioneers in the field of revenue management, who will share their expertise, experiences, and innovative strategies to help you stay ahead in this ever-evolving landscape.
This podcast is brought to you by Yield Tactics and Airline Tactics, the foremost consulting firm specializing in revenue management and pricing, serving clients worldwide.
Today, it's summer 2025, and we're diving into the EU Digital Markets Act, or DMA for short, something that's becoming important for transportation, hospitality, and pretty much any business dealing with digital pricing and revenue management in Europe.
Before we jump in, quick heads up. What I'm sharing today isn't legal advice. Think of this episode as a way to raise your awareness, highlight some key areas you need to watch, and give you a solid starting point for conversations. Every company is different, so it's crucial you work closely with your legal teams to navigate the details and compliance. Now, why should you care about the DMA? Because it's reshaping how big digital platforms operate, and that has a direct impact on how you price your products and manage revenue. We'll also touch on other important EU legal frameworks that you can't ignore if you're in transport, tourism, or hospitality. Let's get started. Setting the scene, why the EU legal framework matters. All right, let's start with the big picture. If you're in transportation, hospitality, or leisure, you're no stranger to how complex pricing can get. But here's the kicker. In Europe, the pricing game doesn't just depend on demand, competition, or cost. It's also tightly linked to a web of regulations designed to protect customers, promote fair competition, and keep digital markets open and transparent. Why does that matter? Because these rules directly shape what you can and can't do with your pricing and revenue management. Get it wrong, and you risk fines, legal headaches, or worse, damage to your brand's reputation. The EU has been on a mission to regulate digital markets more strictly, especially since big tech and online platforms started dominating how we book trips, rides, or hotel stays. And it's not just about the big guys. These regulations trickle down and affect how your company uses data, sets prices, and interacts with customers online. Before we dive into the Digital Markets Act itself, it's worth reminding you of the key legal frameworks already in play, like GDPR for data privacy, consumer protection laws that demand fairness and transparency, and competition rules that keep markets competitive and prevent abuse. These aren't just bureaucratic hurdles. They're fundamental guardrails that define how pricing strategies can be built and executed in the EU. Ignoring them isn't an option. You need to embed this mindset into your revenue management approach. So, with that groundwork laid, let's zoom in on the star of today's show, the Digital Markets Act. What it is, who it targets, and why it's shaking things up. What is the Digital Markets Act, DMA, and who does it target? So, what exactly is this Digital Markets Act everyone's talking about? Think of the DMA as the EU's way of putting some serious guardrails around the biggest digital platforms that act like gatekeepers in the online world. These gatekeepers control key access points, like app stores, search engines, or major online marketplaces, where customers discover and buy transport tickets, book hotels, or reserve experiences. The DMA's goal is pretty straightforward: stop these gatekeepers from abusing their power to squash competition, manipulate prices unfairly, or block others from offering better services. Now, this might sound like a problem only for the tech giants, and partly it is. But here's the twist. Many transportation and hospitality companies rely heavily on these platforms. Think OTAs, ride-hailing apps, or even online travel marketplaces. So when the DMA places new rules on those platforms, it has a ripple effect on how you price and manage revenue. Who exactly counts as a gatekeeper? The EU looks at companies with a huge user base, control over an important digital gateway, and entrenched market power. If you're a smaller operator selling directly, you might not be hit by the DMA itself. But if your business depends on or integrates with these gatekeepers, the new rules will change the playing field for you too. Key rules include prohibiting unfair self-preferencing, meaning platforms can't promote their own offers unfairly, requiring more transparency in pricing algorithms, and restricting how data can be used or combined to tailor prices and offers. Bottom line, the DMA is shaking up the digital landscape that underpins much of your pricing strategy. It forces platforms to be fairer and more transparent, but it also means companies like yours need to rethink how you interact with these platforms and how you manage your pricing and data. All right, now that we know what the DMA is and who it targets, let's dig into the specifics of how it impacts your revenue management and pricing decisions. How the DMA changes the revenue management and pricing playbook. All right, now that we've covered what the DMA is and who it targets, let's get practical. What does this actually mean for your pricing and revenue management? First up, transparency is no longer optional. The DMA requires gatekeepers, like the big online travel agencies or app stores, to be much clearer about how their pricing algorithms work. That means less black box pricing, where you or your customers have no idea why prices jump around. For you, this transparency can be a double-edged sword. It limits the platform's ability to tweak prices behind the scenes, but it also means your own pricing strategies might need to become more explicit and justifiable. Second, the rules limit unfair self-preferencing. Imagine an OTA that owns a hotel booking platform and pushes its own hotels to the top of the list regardless of price or quality. That practice is now restricted. This levels the playing field for independent operators, but also means you need to be ready to compete on true value and pricing, not rely on hidden boosts from the platform. Third, data usage is under the microscope. The DMA restricts how platforms can combine and use data from different sources to personalize pricing or offers. For your business, this means two things. Your data privacy compliance has to be rock solid, and you may see less hyper-personalized pricing coming from third-party channels. This could be a chance to invest more in your own first-party data and direct customer relationships. Finally, the DMA pushes everyone toward a fairer, more open digital ecosystem. While it may sound like more red tape, it's actually an opportunity. With less platform dominance and more transparency, you can rethink your distribution and pricing models, maybe shifting focus back to direct sales or exploring new partnerships that align with the new rules. In short, the DMA is reshaping the digital middlemen landscape, and that ripple reaches your revenue management playbook. It forces more openness, fairness, and respect for data privacy, all of which you need to build into your strategy to stay competitive and compliant. Up next, let's take a quick look at other essential EU legal frameworks you can't afford to ignore when setting prices and managing revenue. Other key EU legal considerations you need on your radar. Before we wrap up, it's worth remembering that the Digital Markets Act isn't the only legal framework shaping how you price and manage revenue in the EU. There are a few other big ones that should definitely be on your radar. First up, consumer protection laws. These rules ensure transparency and fairness for customers, meaning no hidden fees, clear information on prices and conditions, and straightforward cancellation or refund policies. For example, if you're in hospitality or transport, You must clearly disclose all fees up front and avoid misleading pricing practices. This is crucial, not only for compliance, but also for building trust with your customers. Next, we have the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. You probably know this one well. It governs how you collect, store, and use personal data. Since pricing and revenue management often rely on data insights, GDPR means you need to be crystal clear on what data you gather, how you use it for pricing decisions, and always get proper consent. Mishandling data can lead to hefty fines, but more importantly, it can damage your brand's reputation. Another important piece is the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive. This sets boundaries on aggressive or deceptive marketing and sales tactics. For pricing, it means you can't use misleading bait and switch tactics or pressure customers unfairly. It's about keeping your offers honest and your sales practices above board. And let's not forget competition law. This one keeps an eye on anti-competitive behaviors like price fixing or abuse of dominant market positions. For revenue management, that means your pricing strategies must be competitive but fair, avoiding collusion or exclusionary practices that could attract regulators' attention. Finally, depending on your specific niche, there may be sector-specific regulations. For example, rules around ticket resale in transportation or specific consumer rights in tourism and hospitality. So, when you think about your pricing and revenue management in the EU, the DMA is a big deal, but it sits alongside these other important laws. Together, they create a complex but navigable framework that you need to understand and respect to stay out of trouble and build long-term customer trust. It's what you can do now, turning compliance into competitive advantage. So, you've heard about the DMA and other key EU rules, and it might feel like a lot to take in. But don't worry, this isn't just about ticking legal boxes. It's also a chance to rethink your revenue management and pricing strategies in smarter, more customer-focused ways. First, invest in transparency. Make your pricing logic clear and easy to understand, both internally and for your customers. This builds trust and reduces the risk of disputes or complaints. Whether it's explaining how dynamic pricing works or clearly outlining cancellation fees, clarity is your friend. Second, strengthen your data governance. GDPR compliance isn't optional, so review how you collect and use customer data. Get explicit consent when needed, anonymize data where possible, and ensure your systems are secure. Good data practices not only keep regulators happy, but they also protect your brand and give you better insights for smarter pricing. Third, focus on direct customer relationships. With third-party platforms facing new restrictions under the DMA, owning your direct sales channels becomes even more important. Use personalization thoughtfully, not by trying to guess how much someone will pay, but by tailoring offers and bundles that genuinely match their needs and context. Fourth, monitor the competitive landscape closely. The DMA aims to level the playing field, which could shake up how platforms and gatekeepers operate. Stay alert for new opportunities and challenges, whether that's negotiating better terms with platforms or exploring new partnerships and distribution methods. Finally, don't go it alone. These regulations are complex and evolving. Work closely with your legal and compliance teams to ensure your pricing strategies are solid, defendable, and aligned with your broader business goals. In the end, smart revenue management isn't just about maximizing short-term profits. It's about building sustainable pricing models that respect your customers, comply with regulations, and adapt to a rapidly changing digital landscape. The bigger picture, future trends, and regulatory watch. All right, before we close out, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger regulatory landscape on the horizon. Because the Digital Markets Act, as important as it is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Across the EU and globally, regulators are sharpening their focus on digital fairness, transparency, and accountability. The next big topics already knocking on the door include AI transparency and algorithmic accountability. as more pricing and revenue management tools lean heavily on AI and machine learning. Authorities want to make sure these algorithms aren't black boxes, that they're explainable, fair, and free from bias. This isn't just an EU thing anymore. Other regions, from the US to Asia, are watching closely and crafting their own versions of digital market regulations. If you operate internationally, you'll need to juggle multiple frameworks, making compliance more complex, but also pushing the whole industry toward higher standards of fairness and openness. For your pricing strategies and revenue management tech, this means the days of set it and forget it are over. The tools you use will need to be not only powerful, but also transparent and auditable. Expect regulators to ask tough questions about how your algorithms work and be ready to answer. That means staying agile is key. You want to build systems that can adapt quickly to new rules and foster close collaboration between your revenue management, data science, and legal teams. Compliance and innovation should be partners, not adversaries. So, looking forward, the regulatory landscape will keep evolving and the stakes are only getting higher. But if you approach these changes proactively, you can turn compliance challenges into competitive advantages, building pricing models that customers trust and regulators respect. In a world where digital markets are under the microscope like never before, that's exactly the kind of resilience and smart strategy that will set you apart. So, to sum things up, the Digital Markets Act isn't just a tech regulation. It's a signpost of where the EU is heading on transparency, fairness, and control in digital markets. For pricing and revenue management teams in transportation, hospitality, or tourism, this isn't just legal fine print. It's a strategic reality. Whether it's how your offers are displayed, how your algorithms behave, or how customer consent is managed, the rules of the game are shifting, and more change is coming. From algorithmic transparency to AI governance, the direction of travel is clear. The smart move? Stay curious, stay close to your legal team, and don't treat compliance as a box-ticking exercise. It's a competitive edge if you get ahead of it, and a real risk if you don't. Thanks for listening. And as always, these insights are here to spark awareness and internal discussion. They're not a substitute for legal advice. Work closely with your internal teams, follow the evolving guidance, and make sure your revenue strategies are not just effective, but also resilient, compliant, and future-ready.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to catch every upcoming episode. And if you have any questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us.
Stay connected with us on LinkedIn and visit our websites yieldtactics.com and airlinetactics.com for more exclusive content and information about our consulting and training services. From our websites, you can download the Yield Tactics magazine for free, featuring in-depth articles covering topics such as organizational transformation, advanced pricing techniques, marketing, revenue optimization, and distribution. The ideas and opinions expressed by our guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or endorsements of Yield Tactics. Also, when we mention specific companies or products, it's important to note that such references do not constitute an endorsement by Yield Tactics, nor do they imply any business relationship between us.